What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Big Dog Brett. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about the University of Georgia football game between Georgia and Missouri. What happened or didn't happen. What a terrible game that was. Embarrassing, but we'll get into it right after this. All right, guys. Well, not a whole lot of point about trying to make excuses here. There's no point in that. This was an absolute terrible football game by Georgia. Completely shut out in the first quarter entirely. A couple of field goals in the second quarter, and barely at the very end got a field goal. Mizzou gets field goal, gets a touchdown, gets a couple more field goals. Georgia comes out after the half, still looks stagnant, pulls off a late in the game touchdown to go ahead, and then pretty much had to try and run out the clock to win this football game. This is probably the worst football game I've seen Georgia play in many years. I think Kent State scored 22, Missouri scores 22. Granted, we're winning the game, but this was embarrassing. Stetson Bennett comes out, looks lost, can't land a catch. Just terrible. We didn't throw to Brock Bowers until halfway through the second quarter. First time he'd even been targeted. Whole team looked asleep in the first half. Missouri came out very physical, but they're not a great football team. They're 2-3. They're 0-2 in conference, but they almost knocked off the number one team in the country. I don't know what needs to happen in this come up week here, but Georgia's got to figure this out. This does not look anything like the team we saw play against Oregon, and Oregon's a damn good football team. Georgia came out and just lackluster, couldn't get the run game going, couldn't move the ball, couldn't pass the ball, got in the red zone, couldn't score. I mean, Georgia basically had to kick 4 or 5 straight field goals. I think it was 4 straight field goals before they could get a touchdown. This was just embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. Hats off to Podlesny, though. I mean, 4 field goals for 100%. Got put up 12 points or 14 points on the board if you count the PATs. And then you got Harris Mavis on their team. These guys kicking 56-yard field goals like they're chip shots. I think they kicked 5 field goals in that game. My goodness. Absolutely incredible effort by that young man. Georgia somehow only punted 3 times, but it felt like we should have punted 30. Georgia comes out, essentially goes 3 and out, which should have been an indication of how that game was going to go. Asking Stetson Bennett to go out and throw the ball 40-something times in a game to win a game is ridiculous. I think we've proven that if he has to throw the ball a whole bunch of times, on average, it's not good. Brady Cook, the quarterback for Missouri, I thought he looked better than Stetson. He only had 20 completions out of 32 passes. So, I mean, he's throwing it like 63, 64%, somewhere in there, 60%. But looked a heck of a lot better than Stetson. Stetson was barely over 50%. Granted, he didn't throw an interception, but he did fumble the ball. These turnovers are absolutely unnecessary. Kenny McIntosh came out, probably had, I think, the best game that I've seen him have so far, at least in my opinion. 11 carries for 65 yards, averaging 6 yards a carry pretty much. We just couldn't get the run game going initially, but it seemed like on that last drive, Georgia just went down the field and just did whatever they wanted to do. Now, trying to draw some good from the bad here. Georgia didn't flinch at this. Granted, we were down 6-16 at the half, and then Georgia pretty much stayed at 10 points behind until I think we got into the fourth quarter, or right at the fourth quarter, and then Georgia started to try and play. Nail biter of a game, probably the most nervous I have been watching a Georgia football game in several months, if not a couple of years. Last time Georgia was down like that was against Cincinnati in a bowl game, and it was just having to play from behind. I hate having to play from behind, but at least now you know that we can do it. But you should never have to be in that position with a team like Missouri. If Georgia plays like this in the rest of our season, it's not going to be good. As a matter of fact, it's going to be bad. This type of Georgia team, I mean, they could lose to Auburn if they play like this. They could lose to Florida if they play like this. Tennessee, Mississippi State, or Kentucky. They could lose to all these teams if they play like this. By the end of the season here, Georgia's going to have played 4, if not 5, ranked teams. It is possible for Florida to become ranked, maybe the top 25 by the time we play them here in about 3 weeks, but absolutely ridiculous. I think the polls just came out. Let me check that real quick while we're actually looking at it. Georgia's still ranked number 2, apparently. I don't know how that's possible. Really should have been. I think Ohio State should have jumped us, and possibly Michigan. Both of these teams have played very well. And it looks like the coaches in the AP poll are pretty much in sync all the way up to the number 15 spot, but we'll get into that later. Alabama looked dominant. Hats off to those guys. Georgia looked just absolutely falling apart, and for 2 weeks in a row is very unusual. No reason to see that. No reason whatsoever. Thank goodness Brock Bowers was able to bail us out of that mess. But, Georgia has looked essentially worse every week. Looked dominant against Oregon. Looked pretty good against Samford. Looked dominant on offense against South Carolina, but allowed a touchdown. And then last week, not as many points on offense and a bunch of points on defense. And then this week, even less offense and all the fumbles last week. And then 2 more turnovers this week. And again, giving up 22 points. This is highly unusual. Georgia better get their stuff together, or Auburn. If Auburn comes out with the physicality, they smell blood in the water, and Georgia plays like this, man, Auburn might beat us. This is terrible. Georgia got to get it together. Kirby Smart needs to figure it out. Coaching staff needs to figure it out and start targeting Brock Bowers in the first quarter. Certainly need to figure out who the wide receiver go-to guy is going to be. If you look at our roster. And you look at who we've got playing, our number 1 receiving guy is Brock Bowers. Explain to me why, if he's our number 1 receiving guy, why we didn't target him until halfway through the second quarter. And don't give me that crap about we was playing what the defense gave us. No, Brock Bowers is like 6'7". He can run across the middle and outreach anybody on the field. I don't know if Stetson was hurt. I don't know. But if Stetson plays another game like this game, you're going to have to question whether or not you should leave him in or try the backup at some point. Carson Beck's looked dominant. No, I'm not saying we should swap out and give up on Bennett, but if he's got an injury and we don't know about it, and they will play a hurt quarterback, because we did it with JT Daniels versus Clemson, we need to get that resolved ASAP. Rosemy Jack Saint starting to get in the action. We saw Dominic Blaylock a little bit. He's starting to get in some action. Karius Jackson, he's been targeted quite a bit, but he's dropped some passes. They've got to figure this out. They have got to figure this out. If they don't, Georgia's going to be in trouble by the time we get late in the season, because the schedule is going to get harder and harder. So, well, that's just my 2 cents on the game from last night. Just an embarrassing performance. Got to do better than that, and I'm sure they will. So, trying to get to 6,000, so give us a thumbs up and like. Don't forget to leave a comment. If you're having trouble seeing my posts, hit subscribe. Or unsubscribe and then resubscribe so that it'll refresh the algorithm. So really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for being here. More stuff coming this week. Have a great day. God bless. Go Dogs.